Hello and welcome to RGU Talk, the official podcast of Robert Gordon University. I am your host, Johnny Milne, and today we're talking about innovation in the world of architecture. And I'm joined by Learning Excellence Leader from the Scott Sutherland School of Architecture and Built Environment. It's Theo Dounas. Theo, welcome to the show.
Nice to be here.
So I suppose my first question right off the bat would be, what does being a Learning Excellence Leader entail? What does it mean?
Well, it's a funny sounding title, isn't it? Well, I'm essentially teaching at the school and doing research within architectural design, but at the same time, I am helping everybody else improve upon their teaching and learning practices. So that would mean that if we have if a member of staff has an experimental new method they want to try out, they would come to me for advice. If they have a particular problem with a cohort, for example, or if we find something that is not working, we try to help them improve upon their practices.
Fantastic. And what is your own background in architecture?
Well, I'm a registered and chartered architect in the UK and in Greece. I trained as an architect originally, and I am a practicing architect. So up until 2011, before I left for China, from where I came to Scotland, I had a practice in Greece. Okay. I've done about 62 buildings so far. So
fantastic. And you said you came here to Scotland. Why Scotland? Why Aberdeen? And why RGU?
Well, the most practical part was they gave me a job. So
okay.
I lived in China for 6 years, and I had created a department of architecture there to the university I was working for. And I knew of RGU because we had a couple of contacts, and I knew of the school. A role came up, and I went for it, and here I am.
Fantastic. Now, as I said at the start, we're here to talk about architectural innovation. In your mind, what is architectural innovation?
It's a funny kind of idea, in the sense that essentially the built environment and construction is a little bit conservative, right? We've been building with bricks for 2,500 years. And when people think of innovation, a lot of times they think, really high-tech stuff. A lot of times it's very basic, right? So, for example, making a building that doesn't leak heat, right? Or making a building that performs a lot better in terms of function. And within that process, you need to understand where we are standing as current practice and how to improve. So innovation, in a sense, is improving on how we do things. A lot of times people think that this will be a radical improvement, but in my mind, a lot of times it is mostly, a step change on making things better.
And why is now such a good time for innovation? What are the problems that we're currently facing that it could improve?
One of the things that actually makes it much more easy to innovate now is that even though we knew about a lot of the solutions we needed to create in architecture for the past 100 years, we now have the technology to actually make them happen, right? So it's a really very interesting time for the built environment and architecture, in the sense that we really wanted to improve on, for example, industrializing the processes we use. But up until recently, it wasn't easy, because every time you make a building, you are creating a new prototype. So it's not an industry that is easy to actually industrialize and make copies of. And right now we have developed a technology where you can actually industrialize processes, have a high, excellent quality output, and at the same time have a high customization. So you can still make prototypes, but of an industrial quality.
Okay. And in your mind, what are some of the most significant advances or prototypes that we have witnessed in the past, say, couple of decades?
I think one of the things that really is really evident to everybody is the democratization of technologies that before were in the realm of science fiction, or they were only existed, in research labs. For example, virtual reality, or one of the other technologies we use at the school is laser scanning and unmanned aerial vehicles, right? So drones. To be able to operate a drone 10 or 20 years ago, you would need specialized knowledge because you would have to actually build it. At this moment, you can go online and buy one for £1,000 and you can operate it kind of like in a video game. I'm a little bit simplifying, but that's the main purpose. So those technologies, in a sense, have allowed us to make it much more easy to innovate and much more easy to educate people within that area.
Now, you've almost jumped ahead to my next question, which was around drones. I know much of your work at the moment focuses on them. How can advances in drone technology benefit architects like yourself and those following in your footsteps?
There are three areas that we're now looking within the school to use drones and improve upon the current practice. So the first one would be with current surveys, right? So if you really want to have a state-of-the-art model of an existing city or of an existing site, one of the easiest ways you can do it right now is with a drone. So you can fly a drone, and then by collecting laser data or photographs, you can build a very accurate model of reality. And then that accurate model of reality you can use in whatever new design you're trying to build. That saves you time, that saves you a lot of pain in terms of accuracy, right? So the more accurate model you have, the more cost-effective everything will be. The other thing that we are now investigating is actually looking at how drones could actually change how architecture is being envisioned, right? So you can actually see new ways to visualize architecture. And the third part would be how architecture is designed. For most of us, entrances into a building comes from a ground floor. If you actually have the basic equivalent to a flying car, suddenly entrances and egress from building can happen in many other places. So in that sense, we kind of expect that a lot of the buildings and the way we design them would actually change to accommodate a new technology, in the same sense that buildings change to accommodate cars, in a sense.
Yeah. And are these changes being reflected in the skills that you and your colleagues are teaching our students, that they're developing today in the Scott Sutherland School? I cannot
say that everybody is benefiting, but I can say that we do try to incorporate all of these technologies within the curriculum, and these are available to the students. So, for example, in the architectural technology curriculum, all of the cohorts right now worked with a model of the Dee River site that was generated by a drone. So they will have access to all of this technology. And we make certain that when needed, they will be exposed and they will develop the skills to create the visualizations and the tools that are needed for that. Within the MSc in Architectural Design Innovation, we're also developing briefs where the third part of what I mentioned about changing architecture, how buildings are designed, those briefs will help students effectively become leaders in their own field and in this technology, right? Because they will be able to, for the first time, actually create buildings that would respond to this kind of change.
Now, focusing on drones, but on a slightly different topic, if I may, for a second. Obviously, they've featured in the news a lot lately, with incidents of people using them maliciously, say to disrupt airports. In your opinion, how do we combat the negative uses of this new kind of technology? And I guess, does the good outweigh the bad?
Well, it's an interesting subject, actually, and a lot of people were joking with me when the incident with the airport happened, saying, maybe you're responsible or you were flying the drone. As with every new technology, there are certain steps that actually take in, right? So first of all, increasing regulation actually comes in to create the boundaries of how we would use this technology. Another thing that actually takes place also is increasing exposure of this technology to the everyday public, and this makes it seem less threatening, and at the same time they kind of demystify the complexity of what you had before. Obviously, it is a very dangerous technology if you fly a drone near airports, and I don't recommend anybody trying to do that.
Absolutely.
One of the things that kind of will help right now with drones is that we have the concept of geofencing, right? So that basically means that within a map, we will actually be able to forbid drones of entering certain areas.
Okay.
And it happens by collaborating with the companies that produce the drones. Obviously, you will always have the possibility that someone makes a drone on their own and enters that area. You can counter that again technologically by using radars, special radars and special detectors that would try to take down any kind of malicious actor within an area. I would say though, and Aberdeen is an area that has a lot of drone operators because of the oil and gas industry, that if people follow the rules and play by the book, then it's a pretty safe technology in most of the cases.
I mean, it really is fascinating for someone like me who doesn't think about this kind of thing usually. What other kind of innovative work is going on in your school, say connecting between both research and practice areas?
Well, we have one of the areas that the school is really excellent in is actually in the area of visualization. So, for example, we have a couple of projects that Richard Lang and Marianne Leon are leading on visualizing built heritage, and they're helped with by Jonathan Scott, where we are actually using laser scanners to create very detailed point clouds of buildings in Fraserburgh, in Peterhead, in Orkney, and in Aberdeen. We actually were the school that created the 3D model of the city that the city council is actually using right now for master planning.
Fantastic.
Another project that is, I guess, really interesting and I'm really keen on connecting with between research and teaching is one that was funded by RGU from the Pump Framing Fund on connecting building information modeling with blockchain, where we are seeking to redefine the way value is generated in building information modeling and in design.
Okay. And I suppose one final question would be, what is your message to people out there who are considering a career in architecture about all these opportunities that the future and technology affords them?
Well, I would say that architecture is a fantastic profession and a fantastic discipline in the sense that it allows you to envision. I mean, you get trained to envision the future and actually make it into reality. Certainly, if you join our school, we will be able to help you realize your dreams and at the same time be able to have an exciting career.
Well, I hope that message resonates with a lot of people out there. Theo, we'll call it a day. Thank you so much for coming down and speaking to me today.
Thank you so much, and thank you for listening.
And that's it for another edition of RGU Talk. On behalf of the university, I've been Johnny Milne, and we'll talk to you later.